Hey, you've got this part of the video. You've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks Thursday night. It's the 3rd of August, 2023. And if you got this any other time than 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone or 9 p.m. Eastern, you got the recorded version. There's other time zones as well. You can figure that out. Um, you got the recorded version. That's okay. Hang tight. We produce this and make a full length video out of it over on the at theaverageguy.tv if you want to head over there and see the other ones. YouTube, or either watch it on YouTube or listen to the podcast. But we'll get started here in just a second. I know there's a few of you out there, maybe not. Maybe it's just us, so we can get things started here. Randy, by the way, Randy, welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
Good to have you. You were showing me. Oh no, Bob's out there. That's good. It showed 0 in my counter up there, so I was like, maybe there's nobody yet. We'll give him a second to get here. You were showing me in the pre-show for the pre-show pour. What are you drinking tonight? What do you got there?
I am drinking the Finnish long drink. This one happens to be their zero sugar variety.
Oh, okay.
But they also come in classic, which same flavor as the zero sugar. It comes in cranberry, comes in strong, which is 8.5 compared to the regular 5.5. And then this summer they have a limited edition peach flavor that is quite delicious as well.
And it's what's the mix?
So it is gin and citrus, usually grapefruit.
Yeah. And do you taste gin? Some gins have quite the botanical taste to them. Does this
get a bit of it? Yeah.
Okay. Do you like that? I assume you do. Since
I do. Yeah. Yeah. This is probably my go-to can drink.
How much are they? I've never bought one. What typically what do they run?
I want to say a 6-pack is around $12 here in Michigan.
So it's like beer now.
Yeah.
I was at the grocery store tonight looking for. I walk through looking for. Sometimes they've got meat deals. I'm always looking to pick up a top round or a London broil for beef jerky. Mm-hmm. And so I was just walking through, and then I always swing by the beer section, and it's $11.99, $12.99. It's pretty much kind of the regular price these days. And you're like,
sure.
Holy buckets. That's kind of sad. Well, I've got a line of Kugel's Summer Shandy, which is it's a summer favorite in a lot of places. I think a lot of folks get these. I always get a 12-pack at the beginning of the summer, and it kind of lasts me most of the summer. I think I have 4 or 5 cans of these left, or maybe a couple. Just a delicious summer. It's always delightful up there in your, not in your neck of the woods, but maybe a little closer. You guys are a little closer to that than I am up there in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Oh, so I was telling you in pre-show, we were talking rums last time we were here. Guys, thanks for coming out. KDJ, Brian, good to see you. Ken, good to see you. Bob, thanks for coming out. So I bought the Bacardi Ocho, and it gave me a terrible, it gave me a hangover before I even went to bed, which was odd.
Yeah,
so
it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I need to do some testing. I don't struggle with hangovers at all. I mean, you got to really work. I don't know if I've ever had a real one, just to be honest. So I'm used to kind of like, oh yeah, I can do whatever I want. And that stuff knocked me down before I even got started. And I was like, oh, so I got to do a little more testing. They make the Ocho, I think, in a sherry cask.
Yes.
Right. And then in a rye. And so I might try the sherry cask. $30. Not terrible for a rum, a little better quality, tastes pretty good. My kids like it. So that may be one of those things, even if I get it and it does that to me again. Whoa, what's going on here? That's weird.
Up in chat says Oucho.
Yeah, Oucho. Yeah, let's get that up. That's a good one. Yeah, it was. I had to take ibuprofen, and I was like, oh, this is what the rest of the world feels like when they drink too much. I have been blessed in it's not always safe, but I have been blessed with a good liver, I guess. I something's filtering that out, and I do pretty well, even though it might have been a long night. So anyway, so thought I'd catch up the group on that, since last time you were on, we talked about that. Very good rum. and we've been trying more rums. We got some Diplomatico and some Plantation, and tried that Ocho. We tried Papa's Pilar, which we really like. I think that's going to be the family favorite. A little more expensive. That's about $50.
Yeah,
So a little more pricey.
but still more reasonable than a lot of bourbons and whiskeys.
Right now, yeah, I think that's got to change. I don't know. You know, I watch these whiskey and bourbon, YouTube channels, and these guys talk. They just, it's like, they have no problem spending $75 on a bottle of bourbon, or 90 or 100. And like, come on, guys. Yeah, Bob says every now and then you find the kryptonite to your drinking that just goes bam. And
Not
yes,
wrong.
I did. Let's see, which Diplomatico? It's a good question, Justin. I have to go look, which I won't do, but it's the $40 one, maybe, whatever that is. We really like both Plantation and Diplomatico. Those have kind of become family favorites in what we're
Plantation's a
doing.
good solid line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think my son picked up the Panama, which had a pretty large age statement, like 12 or something on that. And I want to say 8 to 12, something like that. And very delicious. And I think that's Plantation.
Could be.
I think it is. Anyways, he buys less but spends more, if that makes sense. He's always
Sure.
got the pricier bottles, but it doesn't keep as much of it. Justin, it might be the Reserva on that one.
Do you remember the bottle color on that one?
Kind of tan, gray tan.
Green glass or brown glass?
That's a good. Hold on. Let's do.
Green glass is the Reserva. They all have kind of a tan label except for the
Sarah.
Planus.
Hey, which Diplomatico do we have? Do you remember? She's gonna go check for me. It's a good question.
We'll edit this part out in post.
No, well, it never makes this part never makes the
Sure,
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, this part never makes the show. This just gives everybody a few minutes to get in here and get set up.
I just picked up last weekend a local distillery had they were $40 a piece.
Say that again. You cut out for me. What'd you get?
$2 a piece.
I'm losing you a little bit. Do you have any? I'm getting any bandwidth. Maybe it's the heat. Let's try. Every time you go to say it stops. It freezes up. Tell it to me one more time.
It's Detroit City Distilleries Midnight Summer Rum. I got 2 bottles, $40 a piece.
Oh, nice.
They're right here in Detroit's Eastern Market.
Reserva. Okay, it was a Reserva. Okay,
with the green bottle.
Yeah, the Reserva. Justin thinks just self-censored.
Yeah, or YouTube not liking the brand.
Okay, I was distracted. I know you've said it 4 times. Tell me one more time.
This was Detroit City Distillery's Midnight Summer Rum.
Oh, okay. And how much?
$40 a bottle.
That's not bad.
2, they had 400 bottles available.
750s or liter bottles?
750s.
750s. Yeah. What's the taste profile on that? What do you like about it?
It's got some vanilla, some citrus. It's a nice, smooth aged rum.
El Dorado, another. Yeah.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah.
12 is a good one.
Yeah.
I accidentally made a friend buy us some pours of 21. Those are expensive at the bar.
Yeah. Everything's expensive at the bar. You're welcome, Justin. They only come in milliliters, so that you have to know. So, although there's some in Europe, right there, I think they are 700, and the United States is 750, and there's some movement to get the U.S. to switch over to 700 milliliter bottles, and I don't know. The Jack Daniels Bonded, which I really like, smoky, dark, smoky, delicious bourbon. Well, Tennessee whiskey is it's bourbon. Is comes in 700-liter bottles, and it's like $30. So I think that's if you're gonna buy one Jack Daniels, don't buy seven,
Mhm.
buy Bonded, and it's just a little bit better of a. I tell you what, Jack Daniels is really like for a brand. The Jim Beam's doing the same thing for brands that were just kind of known as the bottom of the barrel, right?
Mhm.
They just produced a 10-year, and then they just put out a 12-year that is they're supposed to be really really good. So
Oh, okay.
I've had both. I've had tastes of both. My son got the 10, then traded the 10 for somebody who had the 12, and then we got to taste the 12. Really good. Yeah, very 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 good. Um, yeah, Justin says yeah, 375s are what we see a lot of, and some liters. I know I've got a bottle of early times that comes in a liter. 1.5, of course, for us, 750, 1.5 if you're going to go with the big handle.
Yeah.
Here in the US, those are real common. Okay, we're talking WordPress tonight, guys. Thanks for coming out. Good conversation. I could talk I could talk that all night, but we probably should get to some of the content. So appreciate you guys coming out, and let me get this thing started. Here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 850 with guest Randy Walker, recorded on August 3rd, 2023. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the Average Guy.TV studios here in a sweltering, super hot, high humidity. It's the worst part of the summer here in Bellevue, Nebraska. And of course, we post a show with world class show notes. We'll have a few out there at the averageguy.tv. Big thanks to Christian Johnson. He'll be important again a little bit later in the conversation, but big thanks to Christian who joined us last week. And if you haven't caught up on that, it's good to catch up with Christian. He's got a lot of great information. Of course, we talked a little bit about Maple Grove Partners as well. Check that out. It's a long show. I know that, but we're just catching up with Christian, and I just go as long as I want when I want to do it that way. So check it out, 579 with Christian, and big thanks to him. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers as well. If you're finding value with the podcast and you want to give back, you can do it through our Patreon team. Check out the page, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. Randy Walker is back. Randy was on, I want to say in the spring, I think, right? Or
Somewhere
was it
around there,
winter?
yeah, February, March,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, springtime frame. We talked a little bit about bourbons and drinking and some other stuff, but you're a WordPress guy. We're going to talk about, well, first of all, welcome back. Great to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Anything new and exciting in between the last time you were here and now?
Oh boy, not that I can think of. I don't lead the most exciting life usually, but
Have you picked up any gadgets? Did you take advantage
yes,
of Prime Day?
I didn't get anything for Prime Day. I didn't see anything I wanted except
Mhm.
for I should have got a solid state drive. One of the Samsung solid state drives were
Black
2 terabytes
Friday.
for
Black Friday.
$100, but
Yeah, just wait till Black Friday.
yeah,
They'll be
yep.
back.
But my Time Machine backup drive died, or is in the
Oh,
process of dying, so it would have been perfect to switch over to a
yeah,
SSD.
yeah.
But I have recently picked up a Zoom Mic Track M2. That is their 32-bit float handheld recorder.
Oh, nice. Mic Track M2.
Yes.
What now? Why'd you pick it up?
So one of the podcasts I'm involved with, Daily Detroit, I do some field work. So this is good to just have on hand for interviews and things like that out in the field.
I think I got a picture of this. Let's bring it up.
Official product page too.
I think this is it. Is this the right one?
That is it.
Yeah. Yeah, $200.
It's on sale actually, which is weird because it just came out. I got it for $150.
Oh, nice. Was this during the Prime? It seemed like everybody runs sales now during Prime days, but
No, I've had this for a couple months now. They released this back in November, but then pulled it. Some reviews were having some issues with EM interference, so they did a recall and relaunched it in March. I think I want to say I picked it up in May for $150.
Mostly vocals.
Yeah. This is totally for interviews out in the field. stick a
And
microphone in somebody's face and have them tell me about
you
their
you
business or product or yeah,
back and forth on the
exactly.
interview
Yeah.
kind of thing. And how's that work? Is it working out pretty well that way?
It has worked out pretty well. We recorded an episode out on a soccer field post-match analysis wrap-up. Just the host and the sports guy passing the microphone back and forth.
Yeah.
Sounds great. 32-bit float, so you don't have to set levels on it or anything. You
Nice.
just turn it on, push record, and you're good to go.
And then I'm assuming it does have a chip or a card that comes with
Yeah,
it.
it takes a micro SD card.
Could you plug it in and just pull the data off the mic, or do you have to?
I believe
You have
it
to
also
use
has
the
a
chip.
USB mode as well. But
Okay.
we were out in the field. I pulled it out, pulled the chip out, stuck it into a SD card reader for my
Yeah.
adapter because it's a micro
Yeah.
SD card. Stuck it into
Right.
an adapter, which then I stuck into a micro
Oh.
SD to lightning adapter into my phone and pulled it off my phone that way right away, so I could get it to the.
Yeah. I just feel like that kind of memory is like communion wafers.
Yeah,
And
they
just,
are quite small
like, just
and
waiting
fragile. And
for it to fall apart in your hands, and you're like, like this thing is. I would prefer it plug in. You plug it in and download it that way.
yeah,
Do you have to interview a guy that's wearing a beanie cap in the middle of the summer that to be cool on this thing, or anybody can do it, right?
anybody can do it. I mean, the picture there you've got up, Ming Chen, he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. No,
Hung out with him a few times.
the guy with the beanie cap. It always cracks me up that I see some cool guys wearing those in the summer, and you're like,
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. It's fine. Anything? So good purchase. And would you pick up a second one to have as a backup at this
It's working
point, or?
well. The only thing I don't like about it is the windscreen that comes with it is horrible. I had some extra clown noses laying around, so I just stuck one of those on top. But yeah, it's a solid device and has met our needs so far.
The picture I'm showing right now is, they got it at a table. It's in between two. Does that work pretty well? I mean, we don't often, Dave Jackson and I, we do this Saturday morning show called Ask Podcast Coach. And I'm not a big fan of one mic and two people, but does this work okay?
It does have stereo mode.
Okay.
So the way it's set up probably works okay. But I definitely, for swapping back and forth, I put it in mono mode for interviewing.
Yeah. I used to do a lot of this kind of stuff on the road. Go out and do conferences. I'd go out and set up a board and two mics and two arms, and just it was easier that way. It was also a little quieter when you had a noisy conference space. We were always in the hallway. We wanted it that way. We wanted people moving around behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. It gives a little ambiance. I do have the Zoom PodTrack P4 with some tabletop microphones and stands and those things for a more formal sit-down interview. But this definitely is good for quick.
That's cool. Very cool. Mic Track, all one word, MICTRAK Mic Track, M2 Mic Track from Zoom.
They also have an M4 version that has two XLR inputs additionally. So you can plug in two digital microphones to it.
Oh, nice. Well, okay. And what's the retail on that one?
That's an extra $200, so $399.
Yeah. Well, if you're out doing that kind of work, those are, Zoom makes good stuff. And
they do.
Zoom, this is the microphone company, not the Zoom audio.
Yeah, this is Zoom Corp, not just Zoom.
Yeah. Neither one of those companies were very big at one point when they started. You kind of wonder, they've kind of both grown. Of course, Zoom has gotten probably way larger. Zoom, the
teleconferencing.
The teleconferencing company is probably much larger than Zoom, the hardware company, is now. But at one point, they were probably similar size, and you wonder, like, if somebody went, that's pretty close. You know, they seem to be playing nicely in the sandbox. So all is well there.
Just make sure you use a Zoom microphone when you're on a Zoom conference call.
Yeah, exactly. They won't care then. Well, Christian was on last week. We talked a little bit about hosting. Of course, he has Maple Grove Partners. Really, I mean, he has kind of built Maple Grove. He built it initially for me to run WordPress and podcasting on, and so it's kind of optimized for podcasting. But in the early days of podcasting, Randy, we all used WordPress because of the of the plugins for it. It was designed. I mean, not designed for podcasting, but it does really, really well in that space. There's great plugins for it. There's great things to work with it.
Mm-hmm.
That conversation, though, the WordPress comp. Now you're in this space, so you can. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seems like the subject doesn't come up anymore. Now we know from some numbers like a quarter or a third of the world's websites run on WordPress, right?
I believe it is up to 42 or 43% now.
Holy buckets.
Yeah.
So almost half, right? Half the world, little less than half the world, 40% runs on WordPress. But it doesn't seem to get it, even in the podcasting space, it doesn't seem to get the run that it used to. In the world of Squarespace and fill in the blank, the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Why why would I still look at WordPress today if I was going to do a site? Why would I look at that as opposed to some of those stand-up sites that you can just go in and move some things around and you have a website?
A couple of selling points I think are, one is because it is so prolific. It's just there's a lot of resources out there for it. You can search for how do I do X in WordPress, and you find hundreds of results. You get a lot more customization options than some of the pre-configured or point and click things. And then it's so extensible. There are tens of thousands of plugins available to just extend the capabilities. So I think those are probably the big selling points. Is
it harder? I mean,
it is harder.
Yeah, in the land of Squarespace.
Yeah.
I almost forgot what that is. It's been a while since I've even set up a site, to be honest. I mean, the average guy.tv has been on WordPress for 11 years, 12 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had to do a lot to it, but over the years I've put some plugins in. And so it's for me, it's been a site. What do you so if you were thinking like, so somebody wanted to set up a site and they're thinking, well, maybe I'll go Squarespace or whatever. What pitch would you give to them to say, well, you should give WordPress a look before you, and then there's two flavors of WordPress, right? Your own hosted and then WordPress.net or .org.
.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Why would I go that way?
Yeah, so WordPress.org is the download, install yourself on your own web host, or a lot of times these days, web hosts include a one-click installer for WordPress. So that's a plus. If you already have a web host. For other things, installing WordPress is generally super easy. You can just click in their one-click cPanel or whatever admin interface they have. One-click install of WordPress, and then WordPress.com manages it. It's generally cheaper. Depending on what features you need, WordPress.com versus Squarespace or whatever, depending on what capabilities, things you want. If you want to add e-commerce or whatever, those up the price on both sides. But like I said, customization is the big selling point. You can make it look like whatever you want. You can make it work however you want. You're not on. There are no guide rails basically on at least self-hosted WordPress. WordPress.com, you're limited to which plugins and themes you can use, unless you pay them the big bucks like I don't know, time.com or whatever. I'm sure they have a dedicated team for these high-end sites that will do whatever they need.
With that many people running it,
40%,
it's a big attack target, big surface. It's got a big surface area on the web. How do you? I mean, how have they done it this long without it being? I mean, they've had their issues, right?
Yeah, there's
but how have they done it this long with and still maintaining a fairly safe ecosystem?
They're constantly updating it, so they're bugs get identified. They're constantly updating it. But that is one of the drawbacks of self-hosting is that you have to make sure you're going in and updating regularly.
Yeah.
Not only the base WordPress software, but any plugins and themes you might have that might have a bug or a vulnerability. You have to make sure those are constantly updated. And sometimes updating a plugin is not just as easy as updating the plugin. If you're running a really old version, you got to make sure that it doesn't break your site when you update it. So there's a lot of overhead there managing. But there are some really great plugins that will help you manage the security as well. They'll walk you through what settings to turn on and what features you need to keep your site secure. They'll send you notifications like, hey, this address has been trying to access your site for the last half hour. We've blocked them. we noticed that this setting changed when you updated, or you were messing around on the server files directly and you forgot to change some settings. So there's a notification saying, hey, double check your settings, those types of things.
It is now one of the beauties of using Maple Grove Partners with WordPress is that Christian's got a lot of stuff built into his on the back end to kind of make sure it's secure and safe that way. We also have done some work with plugins. I run a security plugin. I do some, I do some things to monitor it. It is, I've kind of got the average guy.tv set to a pretty, I mean, I've got a plugin that updates the plugins. That used to be a problem. It seemed
Hmm.
like the app store problems in WordPress were way earlier than the app store problems that we have on phones today and stuff. Like the just the absolute sheer number of plugins, knowing which ones are from reputable sources. You try and look into the comments and some of those kinds of things. It does take a little bit of active, and then some active guarding, so to speak, right? You may have a plugin developer who just stops, like they built this plugin, you really like it, they just stop developing it, right? I mean, it is still kind of that kind of ecosystem, right?
It is, but generally there are multiple plugins that will do similar things. So if you have to, you can. I mean, it takes a little bit of work, but swap out for the other plugin. Sometimes you might have to update a shortcode or redo some settings or something like that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
there's always something out there. I 95% of the time you'll find what you need
Yeah, there's
with
a lot
multiple
out there.
options.
Yeah. Well, and maybe too many options sometimes. I mean, this
That is
is
also another thing, is you can make it look and work however you want, is a upside and a downside, because the more configuration you do, the more changes you make, the more you have to maintain those changes
Mhm.
that you've made.
For me, the thing on WordPress that changed it, the maintenance of it for me was when I could get what do they call it? Parent and child
Themes,
on
yes.
themes,
Yeah.
right? And you could set up the parent, you update the parent, and then those updates push down to the child, right?
Yeah, and then the child is just your customizations. It's not all of the parent theme code, it's just what you want changed.
Yeah, because what was happening is I would update the parent.
Mhm.
It was one side, and it would start changing things on me, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Setting things back to default or whatever, right? In that, there's a, I think, and I think I have a plugin to help me with this, where you put it in there and you set it out. It took me better part of an afternoon to get that set up and deployed out there. But that is really, as far as updating the plugins, updating the themes, that for me, that really changed the way that I did it. I know as we think about developers doing it, there's got to be some infrastructure, some things when we think about upgrading and deploying and some of those kinds of things. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think one of the most helpful things you can do when you're setting up a WordPress site is, before you update, create a staging site, so that you
Mm.
can practice and experiment and configure, reconfigure, rebuild from scratch if you want to on the staging site. Get it how you want it to look, and then push it over to stage. Push it from staging over to your production live site, and that is just so much easier than trying to fix it live,
Yeah,
fix it as
yeah.
it's going.
Is that so? Is there a plugin for that as well? That would, I'm assuming I need to create an environment. I'm going to go in there. I can see it. I can test it. It's not live. It's not public, right? But I can kind of see it. And then, yep, changes are good, and I just push it over. Is that how that works?
There are plugins that will do it, but also a lot of hosts will include this functionality. One of my hosts has cPanel, and that includes a set of scripts and utilities called Softaculous that will manage the WordPress installation and also can create and manage the staging sites for you. Another site I have is on Bluehost, and Bluehost has their own staging capabilities built in.
Hmm.
So it can be as super easy as just a few clicks on your website host's backend.
Yeah. It like setting up a QA environment.
Hmm.
Sometimes, staging can be difficult because it it's it's it doesn't have everything that you need. Like it's got to be an exact replica, right? It's got to do all
Yeah,
the same things. You got to maintain it, except be public. And
exactly.
that's a little harder, I think, sometimes for people to wrap their head around of in to get all the settings just right. So staging does its thing. It looks like it's real, and
Yeah,
then it's not though.
exactly.
You know?
Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
clone your database. It'll clone all your files and keep it separate from your live site.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just that's a challenge because then you go to deploy and you got to know documented whatever how it's doing. Okay, we're deploying these changes, but the some of those don't deploy because they're specific to the staging area and
Mhm.
not to the live site. So, Justin's talking about running it in a Docker, running WordPress in a Docker container. What do you know about that?
I am not a Docker person. It's possible. It's doable. I know you can just spin up
Oh
your
yeah,
own
yeah,
instances
yeah,
or servers or do it however you want.
yeah,
And Docker is one of those ways.
yeah. It one of the challenges I've always had, I mean, there's been some changes over the last couple years with WordPress, and there's been a little battles, maybe too strong of a word, but right there was some things going on with the way the site. It was like, oh, you probably know this better than I do, so I should just let you say what's been the battle over.
So probably
Yeah.
about 5 years ago now, they switched from what they call now the classic editor to the block editor.
Mm, mm.
Um, and that was kind of the most contentious thing right there. Um, I think most of that's died down now. There is a forked project called Classic Press that doesn't do the blocks, and it's just all the classic editor, which is just
Yeah.
a WYSIWYG editor. But with the block editor, you pull in components, kind of kind of drag and drop, kind of WYSIWYG to just put in content and in your posts and your pages. And now they have taken that even further and rolled out a feature called site editing. Before it was live, it was full site editing. But basically, you can build your site's layout, your navigation links, your sidebar, what's up in your header. You can build that all with blocks as well. So those also have replaced widgets, which were kind of additional content that were not in the main content that you could put in sidebars and footers.
I loved widgets.
Yeah.
Listen, I was one of those guys. I have not changed the site using blocks since they went to blocks because I don't know what I'm doing in there. Like I go in, I'm like, none of this makes any sense to me. And I don't know if it's because it was a site that is has legacy code in it and
Hmm.
it came before blocks. So if I ever wanted to do anything, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to change it. I if I can't change it through the theme or
Hmm.
the widgets, are you telling me widgets are going away? Am I
Widgets are
gonna?
going away. Yeah. So the first step with block editing is that you have to have a block enabled theme.
Oh,
So if your
oh,
theme doesn't support blocks, you're still way back in the old school days.
yeah, it's very
But
possible.
nowadays, themes can also be site edited themes,
Okay.
which more just control colors and styles and things like that. And then they give you some default layouts for the various pages and sub elements. Like here's a default navigation template, but you can build your own templates. You can build your own how you want an individual post to look.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Like that would make sense. I'm sure. Listen, I've been on the same theme for a long time.
sure.
I like my theme. Like if you go
Yeah.
to the average guy.tv, very functional, looks good on the web, looks good on the browser. I mean, in a on a mobile device. I've got it all set the way I like it. Now,
Hmm.
that being said, it's all set the way I like it. I don't need to make that many changes. So now I have to figure out this widget. I got a few sidebar. I've got an advertisement for Maple Grove Partners. I've got the Spreaker jukebox player that's in there. A few other
Hmm.
things that are in there. I'll have to we'll have to convert those, or will they stay? Will they keep doing what they're doing? Do you
Depends
think?
on where the widgets come from.
Yeah.
Maybe the plugin that gives you that widget already has updated, so it also provides a block.
Okay.
Sometimes you can just copy and paste the HTML into
Yeah.
the HTML block and put it in there. Depends on how the widget was made.
If I was going to let's talk a little bit about themes since we talked about Brian had said out in chat. He says really appreciate this discussion. WordPress is something I've always heard about but never really understood. So he's soaking up the info. If I'm if I'm thinking about starting a site and I'm thinking about you kind of start with your theme, right?
Hmm.
What am I going to do with this? Is it better in 2023? Is it better to pay for this thing than to go with a free one, in your opinion?
I would say check out the free options first. Um, the built-in theme gallery in WordPress has a lot of good free options. Also, a lot of those free options have paid upgrades where you can just um, enter your email and a license key, and then it unlocks additional features in that free theme. But I would say definitely see if a free theme, if it's in your budget,
Yeah,
go hog wild and get a custom bespoke theme. But otherwise, check out the freebies first.
yeah. And there's how do I know like is there curation in the store? Like again, this is a lot like when you get your cell phone and you go to the app store for in the WordPress store.
Hmm?
Is there fairly good curation in there? Do you feel
There
like?
is, yeah, and you can actually even filter by features that you want on your
Yeah.
theme. So you can say, I want my theme to be 2 columns with a um, custom background that supports the Buddy Press uh, social media site plugin
Hmm.
that is
Hmm.
also good for news. And I'm going to see if that actually brings up anything. But what custom header, 2 columns, and apply. And I've got a bunch of results that show up with those 4 criteria, I think I said.
Hmm.
So yeah, they're curated. There's a review process for them, and then you can also see, what are the latest ones that have been added, what are the most popular ones that people are using, which support the block themes. So there are a lot of ways that you can um, narrow down what you're looking for in the theme gallery.
Yeah, it's the challenge, and yet I mean it's a huge benefit that you've got a lot. I think if you're a tinkerer, right? Paul Brandon's coming on in September. Speaking of tinkerer, but I think if you're a website tinkerer and you really want to mess around with it, you've got tons of options. Okay, so you mentioned full site editing
Yes.
coming up. Do I need to be worried about that? I mean, what is that? Remind me again what that gives me, and then
So that gives
what?
you an editor where you can say, hey, I want my header to look like this, and I'll put these
Okay,
blocks in the header. I'll put
got it.
the header here, I'll put the nav here, I'll put the tagline here, those types of things. One of the things I did last month at the Metro Detroit WordPress meetup group was actually do a demonstration where I set up a staging site and then switch the theme over to the 2023 default WordPress theme and try to rebuild functionality. The 2023 theme is a full site editing theme, and try to rebuild my old site's look and feel with the old theme in the new full site editor. So I did about an hour demonstration of just going through that and
Nice.
my thought process and things like that of
Yeah.
why I was making that choice and how to do it and things like that.
You talked about user groups. You mentioned it last time you were on.
Mhm.
But beneficial. I mean, it seems like every city has a WordPress group in it. Are those if you're going to do something like this, is
Mhm.
it helpful to be part of a user group?
Yeah, and I lead mine. I have another co-organizer. We're official WordPress meetup group, so that means that our information when we schedule it on meetup.com shows up right in the WordPress backend dashboard. So you log into your WordPress site, it gives you a list of all the nearby events. Our event shows up there as soon as I schedule it. I do have to schedule the next one. We've been trying to do every other month lately.
Yeah. Yeah. It's is it back to normal after the pandemic, so to
We're still
speak?
doing virtual meetings, but we have, with my co-organizer, we have started to discuss whether or not we want to reach out to
Yeah.
local venues
Okay.
and see if we can have an in-person one again.
Still doing virtual,
Yeah,
which would work, right? Works
yeah.
pretty well in this
I mean,
environment.
we're just
Share
screen
screen.
sharing anyway, so
Yeah. 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 That way everybody
mhm.
can kind of get their own screen space and see it in the way that works best for them. A couple of years ago, Automatic purchased WordPress, right? Has that been, or is it Automatic?
Automatic has been the company that has guided, and they own WordPress.com. They
Got
guide
it.
the
Got
open source project. Matt Mullenweg in charge. So Automatic kind of spun up as the benevolent dictator of the
it.
WordPress project.
Yeah.
Um, They bought Tumblr. They have bought some other tools, um, and I don't have any huge problems with the way things are going. Some of the complaints or concerns I have is that all these new block and site editing features look way different than the rest of the admin interface. So the rest of the admin interface needs to get modernized to match
Yeah.
the new stuff. But that's probably my only real complaint right now.
Guess what? Windows 11 has the same problem.
Yeah.
Right? You go in, you start digging in, all of a sudden these Windows 8 dialog box or Windows 7 dialog boxes pop
Well,
up.
I'm
And
sure
you're
you
like,
can probably still find a Windows 3.1 dialog box in there if you dig
probably.
hard enough.
I wonder if he could. I wonder if he could.
I know you
Yeah.
can in Windows 10. It's like in one
Yeah.
of the database connection things. But
Well, it's like any big open source, well, even closed source projects that get this big. I mean, the Windows isn't open source, right? And yeah,
mhm.
Microsoft struggles to keep all the components up to date with everything, look and feel, all those kinds of things. Like, you know, you talk about like, yeah, we've moved in this direction, but these things haven't been updated yet. Who's going to do this? How's it going to get done? There's arguing in the community. It seems like developers are the most passionate
I see that
people.
with every piece of software I use is like
Yeah.
you have the
Yeah.
feature requests versus the new features you want to implement and where they go. I don't know if you're familiar with the Hindenburg audio editor.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's feature backlogs that are years old. Instead of addressing any of those, like strip silence that people have been requesting for years, they introduced the new transcription feature, which is at this point just seems like hey, look, I have that feature too. It's
Yeah.
another checkbox to
Me
compete.
too.
And yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of um, listening to what users want. I'm not sure if that's actually the case. I'm sure they did some sort of research on it, but I the worst part of editing in Hindenburg for me, and I only use it because other people on my team use it, so I'm kind of stuck with it, is
Yeah.
going through and trimming out the parts where somebody's not talking on each of the tracks. And so many other software tools have it built in automatically. You say, trim the silence, and you can set your thresholds and your in and out amounts and everything, and it's just a couple clicks. Whereas
Mhm.
Hindenburg, it's you got a 20-minute track or 20 minutes of audio, and you got 3 tracks. That's an hour plus of work just getting rid of the dead
Yeah.
spots where nobody's talking.
Yeah. Yeah. And I use Auphonic so that it would do it for me. I don't do that.
Yeah.
Lately I've been dropping, I take this video from StreamYard, get the
Mhm.
full fidelity of it, download it. It's probably 5 or 6 gig. And then just drop it, do the edits, cut out
Mhm.
the pre-show beer pour stuff that we
Sure.
do, post-show stuff, add some things to it. Then I just drop the video into Auphonic, and then it redoes the audio for me, both video and audio piece of it. I haven't really tried, removing silence because I don't know what it does to the video, just to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would do.
And my podcasts are all audio, so
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
making it sound as crisp and clean as possible.
Well, I don't do any of that there, but it does
Mhm.
level it for me, re-adds the audio back into the video so that we get a really nice in sync video. And then I download the MP3 and MP4 versions of that and do some things. We make a video large, video small, and then I take the MP3, load it to Otter to get the transcript out
Mhm.
of it. That's another one of those. I'm using 3 services that on some of these they could all be one service, but I like that. Hey, one of the things I did today, totally off topic, but sort of on topic. So we've been having some trouble with the with Otter, and we have our own at Gallup. We have our own transcription tool, and I know there's Descript and some other ones, but they're just kind of average,
Mhm.
right? I mean, they do good. They do a lot better than they used to, but today I thought, what if I took the transcript and then I dumped that into Chat GPT and told it to like, hey, clean this up.
Hmm.
And we took a little sample because I'm not paying for the full version of it, so I'm kind of limited on characters.
Yeah.
But I just took a paragraph and I dropped it in. Wow. Like really well done. Like ChatGPT, it's a language calculator. It
Mhm.
should be good at that, right?
Yeah.
It fixed 90% of the punctuation problems. We had a book title in there that it got right. It cleaned up. It still got the names wrong, but I
Okay.
know why it did
Mhm.
that, right? Garbage in, garbage out on that one.
Sure.
But I thought some of these services, need to think about a two-step process where they run the cognitive AI, which is the version that gets audio converted into, I think they call that, Microsoft calls that cognitive AI, I think. And then rerun it through like ChatGPT once you've got the sentences, because it's really good at editing. It's a really good editor. So today we have a guy who's kind of in charge of our initiative for ChatGPT, and I'm
Mhm.
like, I got a use case. I have a use case for you right now. And he's
Yeah,
like, don't
that's
do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
it's a pretty good idea. I hadn't
Yeah.
thought of that.
Yeah. It's really good. Well, now, okay, one paragraph. I haven't tested
Yeah.
it on a whole bunch of other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I showed my editor this because he has to, he's doing the cleanup on this. It comes out of Otter, and then he's doing, hey Joe, welcome to the show. He's doing the human fixing all of the bad transcript stuff, right? And
Mhm.
we post show notes. In our show notes, we post transcripts with everything that we do. So yeah, I was like, okay, Otter, what you guys need to do now is rerun that through ChatGPT and fix it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. There's a
It's a
bonus.
clever blend
There's
of tools.
there's a bonus. Yeah, well, yeah. It's it it really it's such a good ChatGPT is such a good editor. Like it just edits really, really,
Mhm.
really well. You put some garbage in, it will figure out what you meant to say and not change the meaning or some of those kinds of things. I regularly I'll write something, throw it in there and just say, can you proof this for me? And
Sure.
it kicks it out. The other thing would be cool is it would be like, I have a few suggestions for you. Maybe you should say it this way and not, this sounds a little aggressive,
Yeah.
you know, kind of thing. So, well, as Sarah just said, you should just have me or have her edit it. Well, okay, I could do that too, but you're not always instantly available. Okay, there we go. There we go. Um, what about as we okay, so themes are the top level when we think about plugins, right? But
Yeah, themes are how it looks, and
yeah,
then
that's
plugins are how it additional functionality.
how it acts.
Yep.
What kind of plugins? It's been a long time since I've looked at plugins. What are some helpful ones? If somebody was going to get started for the first time, what might they lean on?
One of the things people ask for a lot on a WordPress site is a contact form. So the one I like the most is Contact Form 7. Super easy, super basic to configure. It's not uh, WYSIWYG. You do have to type in some HTML in there to control the layout, but it guides you through what all the custom fields and things you need to build it. And then a plugin that integrates with that plugin called Flamingo, which stores the data collected. So Contact Form 7 will send you an email with the contact form information. Flamingo will store it in your WordPress database so you can back and reference it in WordPress. And then, unfortunately, Flamingo also saves every email address that you get through the contact form in an address book. So there's a plugin I use called Disable Flamingo Address Book. I don't really need an address book of all the people that send me contact forms. So I just disable that with those. So that's a trio of plugins that work together: Contact Form 7, Flamingo, and Disable Flamingo Address Book.
Randy, how is that different? A lot of podcasters, a lot of folks want to create a newsletter
Mhm.
and they want folks to subscribe to the newsletter.
Mhm.
How is that different? How would I use a contact form differently if I wanted, like you said, you don't want to collect the email addresses. Some
Yeah,
folks do.
sure.
Could you do that? Would that be a way of doing it? Or is there a better tool for that?
I would say there's probably a better tool because once you have the email addresses, you still have to manage them somehow. You have to
Yeah.
sign them up for your newsletter somehow. So I would look into a newsletter plugin.
Like a MailChimp or
Yep.
right. And they
Or
have
even
what's the other
Automatic's
one?
own Jetpack now has a newsletter
Mm.
feature where it like just bundles up your content on your WordPress site and sends it out as a newsletter.
Okay, you brought up the dirty word of Jetpack. So I'm like
It
it,
has a contact form thing too. It's got all these things.
it
It's
has
so much stuff.
everything though,
It has
right? I
everything.
mean,
Yeah.
you get into WordPress and then they start spamming you with like Jetpack this, Jetpack
Mhm.
that. What first of all, what is it and is it good or bad? Or maybe it's a little bit of both.
It's a little
Say,
bit of both, I would say.
yeah.
Jetpack is a single Well, it started out as a single plugin that just adds a whole bunch of additional options for things it can do on your site. So it gives you some additional custom block types. It can cache your images for you offsite, so they're not hitting on your web host. It has a contact form you can add. It has so many things. Um, it's got security. It's got a backup tool. It has SEO. It has stats. It can add these social share buttons at the bottom of your post. It does everything.
It really does. It's an
Um,
all-in-one plugin,
yeah,
right?
and the more you use it, the more it tries to get you to sign up for the not free features in the tool.
Yeah, and they're all free to start with. And I mean, it's not
Not all of them. Like the
okay.
backup is not free. I don't think the newsletter is free. The video hosting is not free. Basically, if
Okay.
it can do it
Yeah.
directly on your site, it's free. If it requires offsite services, then there's a charge for it.
Yeah, they're gonna for some hosting,
Mhm,
they're gonna charge you for that. What's your thoughts on and that's listen, Jetpack's not the only large, organization that's got multiple plugins across
mhm.
this, but what's your feelings on that? Do you think it's better to stay having, getting the best tool even though it might be different companies' tools and having them integrate together, or go with one company that can do everything?
Well, one of the benefits of Jetpack is it is built by Automatic, who own WordPress. Um, if it can do what you want and you don't want to install or you're not comfortable installing and configuring multiple plugins, these all work together. All the features work together and don't conflict with each other. So, kind of peace of mind there is if it has the features you want, go install Jetpack and then activate those features. If you want more than it can offer at a lot of the stuff it offers is basic, then I would say start reaching out and looking out for additional
Mhm.
additional tools.
How do you when you're evaluating a plugin? This was always hard for me.
Mhm.
Like you might I guess this a staging or a QA or another version is the way to do this. But how do I do that in a way if I want to test this? Like, hey, I'm going to go with. How do I do that cleanly so that I can? Because I might have two competing plugins.
Uh-huh.
Either run you can deactivate, run one, turn it off, run the other. But what's the best way to what's the best way you have found to evaluate multiple plugins that do the same thing?
Before I even install them, I definitely compare their descriptions of their functionality. I look through the screenshots and I look through the getting started setting up installation documentation. And sometimes that'll just winnow out one of them. Like it's not super clear documentation or the developer's lazy and doesn't provide screenshots. That means they're probably sloppy with other things.
Mhm.
So I kind of generally tend to
Okay.
eliminate those unless it's got really good reviews. But then other than that, you just got to install them and play with them and
Yeah.
see how it goes.
Yeah, I guess when you're getting started, you probably you probably don't have a lot of people on your site, so
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, I'm looking at mine right now. I have one on there, and so you just it is what it is.
Hmm.
You can probably mess things. This is one of the crazy things about WordPress is you can kind of mess something up, break some stuff, then you can fix it again, and then it's up and running again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some, and you can you think about a theme change you could go in, evaluate some themes. This is the nice thing. On the fly, it'll show you what your current site will look like in the new theme. You can
Hmm.
before you activate it and make it live, you can kind of view it.
That preview is so useless. I don't even know why. Like that is one of those old legacy features pre block themes where a lot of sites had the same structure. But these days, it's I would rather look at screenshots on the theme developer's website
Okay.
than try to do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Here's what it'll look like on your site because it
Yeah.
won't look like your
It
site
won't
at all.
not at all.
It won't look like that at
Not at
all on your
all.
site.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a theme, you make that decision early on to set up a theme and then you put all these plugins in and then you think, oh, I really want this functionality, but this theme won't do that. So then you got to go find another theme, and then you got to kind of retro, okay, I'm going to install this theme. That'll break some other things, and then you got
Mhm.
to go back in, work with those plugins. I make it sound worse than it is. It's actually kind of fun, just to be honest, right? I
It is
mean,
fun to tinker with
I like
WordPress.
it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can do some cool stuff. Okay, so that was Contact Form 7 and Flamingo. What else? What other kind of plugins do you find helpful?
Redirection is super helpful. If you ever change the URL slug of one of your pages or posts, redirection will put in a 301 HTTP redirect so that nobody ends up on a broken page on your site. And I have also used this for a quick, super easy way to build a redirect for something that maybe not on my site, like mysite.com/podcast or whatever. It will take you to Apple Podcasts or something like that.
Is
So
that
just
different than like Pretty Links that gives you a shortener?
it is, yeah. It's just it's a pretty link, but it's not a short link necessarily,
Right,
depending on how long
right.
your domain name is.
I have a plugin that is a broken link checker,
Hmm.
and so it's constantly crawling the site because, or in the early days, we've been out here about 12 years. In the early
Hmm.
days, Andrew Morris used to do he put a way more links than I ever did, and a lot of those sites now are going down and they're not coming back up. And so this broken link checker it'll crawl looking for these constantly.
Hmm.
And then if it finds them, it gives me a little admin page. Here, I'll just show it to you. It's kind of cool. This is kind of cool. This is one of my most favorite plugins. So it will then tell you, hey, this image, this place has a gateway timeout, or it's
Okay.
forbidden. I get a
Yeah.
403, right? Ever. One of the cool things, like these are some old. He used to put links behind images, and I'm really not even that interested anymore in
Hmm.
supporting that from that standpoint. But I have some options. I can say, hey, it's not broken. I can unlink it, which I do a lot of the times. I just
Sure.
unlink it, it just goes away. Dismiss this and just say whatever. And then, or the cool thing is you can do this edit URL and it'll go out and search archive.org to
Oh, that's
say,
cool.
is there an old version of this out there? And can you link to that? So like maybe an HP website that had a product
Hmm.
that product's gone HP, but it's on archive.org.
Yeah.
And so I can say, hey, use this URL to it. I'm not going to do this here, but because I need to actually look at it. But it kind of gives me a cool for broken links. It kind of gives me a cool way to manage those. I know Google does some site rankings, and the more broken links you have, the farther down you
Yeah.
go. So I try to keep those. I try to keep those as up to date as possible.
Yeah. This tool does keep track of any 404 errors that visitors to your site might get encounter, and then logs them so you can manage them after the fact. But it doesn't go actively check all the links on your site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was one of those. I was reading and Google was like, "Yeah, don't have broken links." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I better manage that in some way."
Yeah.
And so from a security standpoint, because this is, I think, really important. I redirect my admin page. You're talking
Mhm.
about redirecting. I
Mhm.
redirect it to a URL that only I know, just so
Yeah.
that it's not the default landing page, right? That someone can just land on. Are there some other security tools that you like?
So one of my hosts includes their own WordPress tool that does include a obfuscate the
Mhm.
admin URL and configures a couple of other things. That host is called A2 Hosting. They're based here in Michigan in Ann Arbor, so A2 Ann Arbor. Um, but iTheme Security is the big security plugin tool. It does everything, file permissions to um, making sure that you have things configured correctly.
Mhm.
Will some of the stuff I mentioned earlier will say, hey, this person has been trying to access your site for the last 30 minutes. It's a brute force attempt. We're going to block them for the next 24 hours, or we can permanently ban this range of IP addresses or that type of stuff. So,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, Christian does some of that stuff on the back end,
yeah.
so I don't have to worry about that as much.
Mhm.
Ken's asking, he says, "Is the P3 plugin no longer
I don't know
available?"
what P3 is.
It's a plugin performance profiler. Can I still have it running on my site? He says, but any recommendations for a profiler plugin?
The author
In
has
other words,
removed. Oh, this is from GoDaddy. Hmm.
did they pull it?
It says author request, so sounds like it.
Okay. The beauty of the profiler, and I think I'm using something different now. I think I am using maybe Query Monitor.
That's one I've
Christian,
used before.
yeah, I think Christian put that on there. But any because it'll let hey, these pages are slow.
Yeah.
I think, and I actually get. Let me go back to my dashboard. I get a health report. Let's see what does that for me. Health status. I get a site health status. So one of the
That's
plugins. Go ahead.
Site Health is built into WordPress
Oh, is it?
lately.
Oh, okay.
But I think some plugins can extend what it's searching for.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I
No,
think that's up.
no. I think you're right. So, okay. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, this is one of those areas where you're like, you got to kind of keep up with it.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, I think one of the ability, and I think this is built in as well, right? You can give the plugins the ability to automatically update.
Yes, you
How do you feel? How do you
can.
feel about that?
If I would say if you've been keeping them automatically up to date regularly, keep doing it. But if it's an old plugin and then you turn on, it's 3-year old version and then you turn it on, that's when you would probably start having problems with
Mm,
feature changes and things like that.
yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things Dave Jackson and I say all the time, especially with WordPress, if things start going wrong, start disabling your plugins first and enable them one at a time, right?
Absolutely. And the easiest way to do that is go to your file manager on your host and rename the plugins folder to plugins-old. Completely
Takes them out.
takes them all out of the equation. If your site's still broken after that, then you've got big problems.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, definitely
yeah.
disabling plugins is a good way to, and then turn them on one at a time is a good
Yeah.
way to troubleshoot.
It's been a while. It's been a while. He sometimes when I have problems, he'll go in and say, I'm getting these kinds of errors. It looks like it's this plugin that's causing the problem. So
Mhm,
that's kind of nice too. He's really good. He's much better at reading logs than I
mhm.
am. So you can do that as well. Okay, what else? Plugin wise, anything else that you're finding helpful?
One of the sites I'm part of, we use Podcast Importer by Second Line Themes.
Mm,
We host that particular podcast on Libsyn, but want a post for each episode on our website. So it monitors an RSS feed and will sync them over to the site, creates a new post for each episode. It does it in the background. If it stalls out, it won't reduplicate existing posts. So it's super handy to import a podcast content if you're not using WordPress to generate the podcast.
mm. Yeah, for podcasters, super helpful to be able to pull that together. I actually just use code for
Mhm.
that. I
Sure.
don't. Christian hosts it. YouTube has some code. The player has some code. You put that in simple. No, what's that? What's the theme that we all use for PowerPress? There we
Yeah.
go. There's some integrations in it with PowerPress, and that also is a theme that has been built on and built on and built on. I mean, it's been around for such a long time.
Yeah, one of my podcasts, I actually use PowerPress natively in the WordPress installation. So to create the new podcast episode, I create the post first on WordPress, and then down at the bottom of the post, after I type in the show notes in the post, then I say, "Here's my media file," and
Yep.
to PowerPress, and then it generates the RSS feed is actually from my site and not anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's some really cool plugins, and there's even developers. I've got the social subscribe and follow icons that Daniel J. Lewis built.
Mhm.
It's single developer. He keeps those up. They're really nice icons for the page. You can put the links behind them, change those links if you need to,
I
display
have
it with short code. Speaking of that, short code, is that going to stay around? Like, the,
now there's a block for short codes where you can type in short codes.
okay, okay.
Um, I have a similar plugin that uses the official Listen on Apple Podcasts, Listen on Pocket Casts images.
Mm,
I just posted you the link on the Discord here.
okay.
Um, One of my long-term goals has been to get this in the plugins directory, but it's just a lot of work to make it an official plugin. But you can always download the zip and upload it to your site. if you want these official
That's
listen
like
on.
side loading, right? That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
on your phone. If you wanted to side
mhm,
load it, this is you can take a plug in and unzip it and put it in a directory, and it just installs.
yep.
Yeah,
I just updated it to remove Stitcher because they're going away
they're gone. Yeah, we
soon.
just
But yeah,
released a new podcast at Gallup, and they were like, "Where's the Stitcher?" I'm like, "No, they're gone. They're actually gone."
is it end of this month they
I think
officially
so.
did?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just like I tell folks the big three, and then our Spreaker page. So Apple, Google, Spotify, and for us, we host on Spreaker. Our Spreaker page has all the other, all the buttons for all the other things as
Yeah,
well. So we just that just seems easy enough, right? To
yeah.
do it
One of
that
the
way.
things I want to do with this plugin is see if I can get ChatGPT to help me rewrite it better.
Oh, there you go.
Also, it doesn't use blocks; it also uses short codes.
Okay, yeah.
But block development is way more complex and takes a lot more knowledge than old school plugin development. Old school plugin development is just some PHP, but with blocks,
Mhm.
you've also got to know React and JavaScript. And back in
Yep.
the day, I had created. I've been using WordPress since 2003, so back from the very beginning, I was writing themes and custom plugins for things. And oh boy, I do not feel comfortable doing that a lot these days. That's for sure with all
A lot
the
of
new
work.
stuff in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's you think especially in the open source community, right? You're jumping in here and you're like you're excited to do these things, and then so you start developing and you're getting this feedback and it's exciting. And then people start breaking stuff or people find the the weakness in your
Mhm.
code or what,
Yeah.
and then they start getting demanding like I depend on this, you and especially if you charged for it, right?
Yeah.
They're like, "Arr," uh, that's just never a space I ever wanted to be in because I just didn't want I just want to deal with people
Sure.
coming back. It's the one thing that kind of stops me from being an entrepreneur on things. You start doing stuff and you're like, oh yeah, actually I don't. I mean, I deal with enough of that at work and the community that I work
Mhm.
with, but I have a whole team of developers who have to do that work, not me. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't do this for money. The themes and plugins I've written in the past have all been for personal use or,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
released this one because
Yeah.
other people wanted it, so
Yeah. Yeah. No, right on. Well, but people don't care if it's paid or not
yeah,
paid,
that's true.
right? Anyways, okay. Not to end on a down note. Anything else, Randy, as we think about WordPress? Anything else you want to add? Is it
Um,
helpful plugins? Anything else before we kind of wrap it
Next
up?
week, the new version 6.3 is available.
Oh,
I'm currently running a release candidate, but new features in WordPress 6.3 include some fleshing out of the full site editor. Um, and then just a lot of um, functionality or improvements, enhancements. So there's not a whole lot of like wow new features, but they keep updating it every quarter. There's a new version of WordPress in
that's
addition to the minor
yeah,
bug fixes and security fixes in
and the
between.
plugin updates as well that go
Yeah.
along. So you'll see ahead of this, you'll see some plugins getting ready for it, so
Hmm.
that they'll all update, and then
Yep.
the update will go in, and then you'll see a few more plugins after the fact start releasing stuff
Hmm.
for it. So it's anytime they go to a major version like this. Would you call this a major version?
Their versioning is kind of weird. I would
Yeah.
have put some major versions in way before they did, but some of them block stuff they released as a point version, but should have been probably a major
Should have
version.
been a
But
full version. Yeah.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't really understand their philosophy behind versioning, but
6 is a pretty small number.
yeah,
As long as it's been around,
yeah, 20 years.
are they thinking ahead to 7? Have you heard anything?
Ooh, I don't know about 7.
Okay.
Uh,
We
I
got a
know,
lot of point releases before we get to that
yeah,
spot, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't
When
know.
was
They do.
6? When was 6?
Ooh, 6 was. few years ago now at this point,
Yeah.
I believe. Couldn't even tell you. Let's
Yeah.
see if I can click back around.
I kind of just install them and
Yeah.
good to go. Check it, and somebody will let me know if it's broken at
Yeah.
that point. I have a couple like Pretty Links needs to update. Those are all on automatic. So
Mhm.
I go in there, it'll say in 5 hours, this thing's going to update on you. I'm like, okay. And I could just choose to do it right now if I want to. Here, let me update this one right now. Daniel's has got an update to it, and I don't know if I paid. That's a paid one
Okay.
that I do. Yeah, I did. Okay, I don't. I'm not the best at keeping that thing paid all the time. So it looks like I'm good to go.
6.0 was May of last year.
Okay, so not too long ago. Still working for what I want to do, and that's the thing. That's the crazy thing is, although you've given me a little bit of homework, I probably need to check the theme
Mhm.
and for block because I know, like, but again, I don't. My it's gonna sound crazy, but for each post that I do, I just go to the post before it, the podcast post before it,
Yeah.
grab the code out of it. It's just one big block. Grab the code out of it. I change a few things like the
Okay.
show number and then for any editing, I just put that in an HTML editor. It spits out code for me if I need to. Otherwise, I can just type in words, right? It's just fine. I don't it understands that without the HTML. But if I want to put links and things
Yeah.
like that in, and so it's literally, you say full site editor, I'm doing a full post editor every single time.
Yeah, so one of the features of a block-enabled theme is that you could save some of those components as a reusable pattern and just insert those again instead of going and copying and pasting. You can add it from the block menus, save it as like podcast template or
Uh-huh.
episode parts or whatever, and
Yeah.
just insert that each time.
Yeah. Yeah. What would I do? That means I have to learn a new process.
True.
It's funny. I've done 500, well, not all this way, but probably the last 400 I've done this way where I just grab the code, copy and paste, bring the code in, make the change. I'm really good at finding those and copy, paste, grab it, move it. I'm going to have to copy and paste. Even with a block editor, I would need to bring those, YouTube code over and the number of the show and some of those other things. Because I update in the text, I update the show number in a few spots. So I'd have to
Mhm.
go in and manually do that anyways. But yeah. Anything else, Randy?
I
Any
just
other
looked up
thoughts?
when they launched this block editor,
Yeah.
WordPress 5.0 in December of 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's been, I, I went in the very first time after it was released and I
Mhm.
was reading the show notes and not the show notes, but the release notes. And I
Yeah.
was like, huh. So I go into and it all makes sense now that I'm talking, couldn't find any of the stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I don't see any blocks. Well, I'm just going to go this way with it. And I never went back to it. Well, it's probably because it's not a block enabled theme. I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got some. Last time somebody gave me homework, I set up an Unraid server. So now I'm going to have to go in there
Set up a
and
WordPress staging
set
site
up a
and
WordPress. How do you do your backups? What do you have locally there for you? Do you have any storage locally, or are you doing it all in the cloud?
for the site or just general?
Just for you, like for
Um,
your data.
my personal data, I just do a local time machine backup. I keep a
Okay.
couple of things on iCloud Drive but most of it is just a local backup.
Yeah. I've been kind of pinging everybody, the guests as they come on, like, where are we at? We all came out of the home server show and back in the old days, we'd build these big boxes. What's ironic is I have, 70 terabytes of data today that back when I was in the home server show, I had like one. So, you're like, I had way more data than I ever had, but I've been asking folks kind of how they're doing it.
Uh-huh.
I'm getting a sense, I'm getting a feeling it's getting simpler and simpler for most people. Not everybody,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, like I said at the beginning of the show, my time machine drive died or is dying, so that's all I do is time machine. So I need to get a new drive soon.
time to get the drive. The good news is, and Uncle Marv, he says, "Oh no, not the backup talk again." Come on, Uncle Marv, I'm asking everybody. I want to get everybody's opinion. Um, the good news is even without if you miss the sale, you miss the Prime sale, they're still not terribly expensive.
No,
Yeah,
$120 for 2 TB.
yeah.
I go by double the internal, so I've got an internal 1 TB drive, so double that for a time machine backup should be plenty.
And you're going to go SSD?
I think so. I have some friends advising against it, but I think that's kind of old school thought. SSDs are pretty reliable these days.
Were they just worried about the number of writes?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah.
How often does your time machine back up?
Time machine is what? Hourly for 24 hours, daily for a week, and then weekly for a month or something.
I just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah. It's just, that's what I do is I plug it in and let it handle things. I think those are the numbers it uses for it, but yeah.
I put a 2 terabyte spinner. I too have I've got I think I have the 500 gig drive in my Mac Mini, but I went with a 2 terabyte spinner. Works great. You go that route too.
Yeah, this was a spinner, so I could probably pick up a 2 terabyte spinner for $50-$60.
Cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're cheap. They are very, very cheap. So
and maybe I just do that and punt the SSD decision down the next 3 years.
Whatever. I mean, you can get a really nice SSD in a really nice external case, and you do what you want to do, Randy.
Yeah,
you do what you want to do. Don't let anybody sway you. I just had a case, hard drive case. I bought all these 8 terabyte drives when I was doing crypto, and so I had these empty cases because I shook them. And I was like, oh, this will make a nice little case for, I got this. I don't need that much space for my time machine backup. So I grabbed a 2 terabyte drive, threw it in there, plugged it in, and it's just works.
Mm-hmm.
Just works. So you do what you want. Yeah. Joe says good SSDs are cheap now. So, yeah, you can go that route if you want. Well, Randy, thanks for, there anything else WordPress related you want to cover before I wrap it up here?
I think that's everything for now.
All right. Good stuff. Again, just a reminder, if you say you wanted to set up, WordPress got started with blogging, right? That's its bread and butter, right? Podcasters hijacked it at that point and used it. But there's a lot more than just blogging and podcasting you can do, right, on a WordPress site. It'll do just about anything. E-commerce options if you want to do it that way. It's kind of build it the way you want it. So if you're in that kind of space and you want to do it that way, might be a good option. Just a reminder, Maple Grove Partners specializes in that. And if you want to get in for $10 a month, the software is free. Well, the initial install of the software is free. You may have to pay for plugins and some of those kinds of things, but for right now, WordPress isn't charging. They're not charging for WordPress, right? At this point, that's still
it's still open source and free.
Right?
Yeah.
Has there been any? Well, I guess through the plugins, they're making all the money they need, right? Through this
and WordPress.com, where they are the host.
Yeah, where they're the host of it. Yeah. So give it a try. If you want to do it that way, you can do it at WordPress.com, or you can contact ChristianMapleGrovePartners.com. And he's got some plans for $10 a month. Get you started. Get you going. We'll get it done. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. If you come early, right, you get the beer pour. And so many of you guys that are out in the chat, I'd love to see a few more who are listening right now come out on a Thursday night. I know it's late, whatever. You could sleep into the next day. You could sleep at work on Friday. Just come out and join us on a Thursday night, theaverageguy.tv/live. We'd love to have you here. If you want to join the conversation after the fact, and Randy is out there as well, you can join in the Discord group, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Super easy. If you want to leave me a message, maybe you got a show idea and you want to drop that in a note. You don't want to type it, you can leave a voicemail message, homegadgetgeeks.com. There's a little microphone there as well. We, I think, I don't have anything lined up next. No, that's not true. Jay Franzi's coming back next week to join me, and then I've got some time off. But love to have you come back on a Thursday and join us there. We will see you next week. For those of you listening live, thanks for coming out. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Randy, thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Good to catch
my
good to
pleasure.
catch up with you as well. Didn't get to we got to get you some air conditioning in there though. That's I'm a little worried about you.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see me wiping my brow a few times, but
Whew. You got
because I turned the fan off too for
Oh, turn
background
that
noise.
fan back on right now.
Hey Siri, turn on fan.
There we go. Yeah. Let's see if you probably could have. I bet the noise canceling is it on now? Did it
It's
turn
on
on?
now.
Yeah, you probably could have had it on the whole time. I appreciate you taking one for the team though. But yeah, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. Brian, thanks for the note. Do you think WordPress will just go on forever, Randy? Like,
I think so. It's got a lot of legs, a lot of stuff that it can do, should do,
yeah,
is already
you
in the
know,
works.
in the realm of we're to this point, like so many of these things that started and then they just kind of drift off, right? They
Mhm.
become irrelevant. Like MySpace, right? Where
Mhm.
they just become Yahoo. They just become irrelevant. And you think, I wonder, like a thing like WordPress, I wonder how long it will be. I mean, I too believe I don't see why it would end. There's
Yeah.
nothing out there to disrupt it. Now you never know you're being disrupted until you are, but
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't see anything out there, the Squarespaces of the world and whatever. The site builders didn't really disrupt it.
I'm just checking their track right now. Then they have a 6.4 milestone, and then everything else is future release. That's as far as they go as the next point
Yeah,
release.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that makes sense. It's just, yeah. I mean, there's so much dependency on it for what's going on the web, and so you just kind of think, what would a world look like without WordPress?
Mhm.
You know, and what will disrupt it, or will it disrupt itself and continue to be a part of the consciousness like Facebook is today or whatever. You just get you kind of want Google, and get you wondering, like, will there ever be a day when it's not,
Yeah.
you know, when it's not there? I don't know. Well, I don't know. Um, any other thoughts? I'll wrap it if you're good. We'll
Um,
get you off to you Eastern.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little late for you. You working tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you off to bed. If you're joining us, hang tight for a sec.
Yeah.
If you're joining us live, thanks for coming out, guys. Justin, Brian, Joe, Uncle Marv, Ken, Secret. Who else? I guess that gets you. Oh, Bob was out. Producer Bob was out a little bit more. He said drink less for more. Um. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next week. Jay will be here. We'll have another fabulous topic, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.